Perdition's End? An Owl House tale written by old Ben Kenobi, Q the Sun. Canterlot Castle was known far and wide, across the fair land of Equestria, where even the villages in dark woods of Trottingham had at least heard tell of it. If an intrepid explorer found their way through the brambles and the shadows of the trees to ask these ponies about Canterlot, they would likely come away from such a meeting with an image of a bright, loud, and overwhelming place, one about as far from the calm and the quiet of the woods as one could expect. Yet in the Canterlot throne room, under the beams of moonlight that shine through the stained glass windows glorifying the victories of centuries upon centuries, was a setting of such serene calm and quiet that even the ponies of the gloomiest woodland village would find soothed their ears and their dreams. By the throne itself, surrounded by swirling motes of moonlit dust, slept a small, purple dragon, dreaming of a hoard of gemstones and emmer spike. The voice of the princess snapped him out of his slumber instantly as he stood to attention, and he saw her standing at the other end of the throne room, all on her own. Yet something about her, the way her ears stood erect, the way her eyes seemed far too wide, as if she had seen a ghost, made Spike feel a chill creep up his spine. His wings shivered. "TW Twilight?" stuttered Spike. "What's wrong?" "Send a letter to my friends in Ponyville," she stated, briskly. "Tell them to come to the Canterlot throne room at once. My guards know who they are, they'll be let through." The tiny dragon rubbed sleep from his eyes as the light shone through the winds and brought the regal form of the princess into full view. "What for, Twilight? Are you sure it can't wait until morning?" "What for?" Twilight repeated, confused, and pointed her hoof leftwards. "For him, of course." Spike followed her hoof, squinted, did a double take, and saw absolutely nothing. "Nothing is there, Twilight." The dragon blinked, his head drooped down sadly. He was so sure that Twilight had gotten over all the stress and twilighting. Twilight's eyes narrowed. "Spike, stop foaling a radash." She stopped, her ear swiveled and cocked to one side as if she was listening to some pony, or something, whispering in her ear. As Spike listened intently, he could just make out the muttering under her breath. "I can't just lie to him." She paused for a moment. "A subordinate?" she repeated, and Spike noted the offense in her voice with a hint of pride. "He's a friend. Don't you know well, obviously he can't see or hear you, but I don't see dash." Another pause. "Right. No, that's a good point, you're right." She looked back at Spike, a faint smile dancing upon her muzzle. "Spike," she said, carefully, "I ask you to trust me, as you always have, when I say that bringing our friends to this throne room, right now, is of utmost importance. But dash, I promise, I will explain everything when our friends are here." Spike nodded and scampered towards his writing desk, grasped a dark blue featherquill in his claw, Princess Luna's parting gift, and hastily scribbled a note which he sent into a cartwheeling flame that lit the entire room in an eerie green flash. Pinkie Pie snoozed in the bedroom at Sugar Cube Corner, when she threw off of the covers and leaped out of slumber. "Shaky hoof," she said to herself, "shaky hoof. That can only mean one thing." The door burst open, and the white and purple figure of Rarity came into view, levitating a roll of parchment in front of her. "A letter from Princess Twilight," Rarity said abruptly, and Pinkie giggled. "That's what I was going to say. Are you sure you don't have a Rarity sense?" Rarity blinked in confusion, then shook her head. "Oh Pinkie, darling, I do apologize for startling you so very late in the night, but my dear Spiky Wikey sent us this message all the way from Canterlot, and of all the ponies in Ponyville, I thought you would be the one who would best know where and when to find all our friends to call them together." "Well," said Pinkie, in her ever-present bounciness, "what does it say? What does it say? What does it say?" Rarity cleared her throat. It would not be befitting for her to forget her manners and behave in uncouth and unladylike ways, even in times as this. "Dear Rarity and friends, Twilight has asked for all of you to find your way, as soon as is practically possible, to the throne room at Canterlot Castle. She has an invisible ghost or something that only she can see and speak to, and I think she needs all your support in this. All in all, not quite the strangest thing we've ever come across, but pretty weird nonetheless. Your faithful dragon, Spike." Oh, said Pinkie. "A ghost? What kind of ghost are we talking about? Is it one of those spooky white ghosts that ponies dress up as on Nightmare Night?" Pinkie Pie jumped backwards, blending into the shadows except for her two shining, blue eyes. "Or is it one of those mysterious and refined spirits in old pony manor houses that curse the home for hundreds of years and never dash?" "Pinkie Pie," said Rarity, softly but firmly, "I understand it is your special talent to make light of dark and dreary situations, but I feel I must remind you that we are talking here about a pony who lived an entire life and has now returned to the mortal plane from the land of spirit. Such topics must be discussed with an air of grace and tact, rather than being made light of." Pinkie looked at Rarity, then visibly deflated. "You're right, Rarity," she sighed. "I'm sorry, Just what kind of pony would I be if I didn't giggle at the ghosties? As Rarity walked along the empty streets of Ponyville with Pinky walking alongside, the white unicorn leaned towards Pinky and said in a quiet voice, "Just between you and I do very much prefer the mysterious, refined spirits in stories. They all seem to have a very dapper, charming sort of air." Pinky said nothing, though each bounce seemed to have more spring in it, and a faint smile played around her pink muzzle. Twilight paced back and forth, her gold-shod hooves echoing around the room, as the spirit of Philip Whitbane observed her quietly, with the occasional longing, sidelong glance to the stained glass window depicting the defeat of Discord. "Let me repeat your story one last time, for clarity," said the purple alicorn to the insubstantial spirit. "Your world was under threat from an invasion of demons from another realm, and you found your way into this realm in order to find your brother who had been stolen by the demons. But you say you found your brother dead, attempted to leave the realm and were found by the demons who killed you, bringing you here." "I would say that about covers it, yes," said Philip, quietly. Twilight frowned. "There are a few things I would like clarification on," she replied. "You say you found your brother killed, in a cave, yet there were apparently no demons in sight, nor did you have to fight your way into this cave. I'm sorry, but I find it unlikely a single mortal such as yourself could track your brother through a demon realm, face no opposition, then find his body in this cave. No, there's something more to the story, something you're not telling me." She paused. When the subject of his brother came up, the guilt that emanated from his soul was so overwhelming that it made Twilight's heart skip a beat. She believed, certainly, that both Philip and his brother had ended up in this demon realm, but from Philip's patchy and suspiciously vague retelling of events, there would be no cause to feel such remorse. It seemed likely to her that the guilt from Philip was because he had felt responsible for his brother's death, but why? Philip did not answer, but instead, walked reverently past the stained glass windows, his wide eyes staring up at each one. The defeat of Nightmare Moon, the ascension of the Crystal Heart, Cadence and Shining Armor's wedding, as the gentle tinkling of the fountains on either side of the alabaster white throne filled the silence. "To be here," he murmured, and Twilight could barely hear him, "in this castle, of such beauty after that terrible, awful place." He looked back at the princess with baleful eyes. "Do you know what it's like, princess, to one day be home, in a world you had grown to love, with quiet nights, green trees, birds singing in the meadows, and in the next moment, be plunged into a world where horror and evil have taken over so completely that even the very skies and the fields no longer feel familiar? When the entire land itself vomits out scenery and specimens that seem to exist solely to offend the natural order of beauty and harmony? Of those closest to you, suddenly turning against you, as if they had never known you?" Twilight, with a shudder, cast her mind back to all those years ago, when Discord's madcap rule had once again tarnished the lands of Equestria. Of checkboard fields, of bunnies with giant, stick-like legs and of staring into the eyes of her friends who were friends no more. And though she had not been there, the few tales she had heard, whispered in the halls of Celestia's school for gifted unicorns, of Groger's fear-soaked epic of darkness across Equestria had given her more than a few nightmares. "More than you know, Philip, more than you know," she sighed, and saw a tiny, smug smile of victory appear on the apparition's face. "Equestria, too, has seen more than her fair share of eldritch matters." "Then you would, I take it, do anything to turn things back to the way they were," he said, his voice silky smooth, "no matter what you had to do, no matter what sacrifice you had to make." And tone of pleading had made its way into his voice. Twilight paused. She had found her way through every danger she faced because of the friendships she had made, both with her friends and even former enemies like Starlight and Throwax, yet if she were in an entire demonic realm, with nobody but herself, just how far would she be willing to go to put an end to things? When she was facing an invasion by the Storm King, she had been perfectly willing to lie to, steal from, and manipulate the Seaponis to save her kingdom and her friends. Suddenly, a thought struck her, and she turned to the spirit. "And what exactly would you be prepared to sacrifice?" she said, quietly. Whatever answer Philip was about to give her was cut short, however, when the doors of the throne room burst open to reveal 5 ponies, 2 Pegasi, 2 earth ponies and 1 white unicorn. "Princess Twilight," called the familiar, country voice of Applejack, "we came runnin' as soon as we could." Twilight surveyed her friends, Pinky bounced up to her, irrepressible as ever, and the purple alicorn could not suppress a smile. Rainbow Dash was floating above them, brash and confident as ever, and Rarity was as delicate and refined as Twilight remembered from their first meeting. But behind them, barely out of the door, was the shy yellow Pegasus with the strawberry-pink mane Fluttershy. She was looking in the direction of Philip Whitbane, and her yellow fur was noticeably on end. Can she see me?" said Philip, genuinely surprised. It seemed that even he had noticed something different about Twilight, but the fact that this humble yellow Pegasus was looking in his direction seemed to come as a surprise to him. "I don't think so," replied Twilight, startling the gathered ponies. She slowly walked over to Fluttershy. "Fluttershy," she said, earnestly, "what's the matter? Do you see anything?" Just for a moment," squeaked the Pegasus, "I saw a flash, some kind of creature on 2 legs." She took a few steps forwards, but her gaze became unfocused on the spot, and Twilight knew Fluttershy could see him no longer. "Girls," said Twilight to her friends, "we have seen many marvelous and terrible things in our travels, centaurs and changelings and storm beasts from far away, yet today I have seen a being that confounds even my experience. For I have been to Sialem and back, and I have made contact with a being of pure spirit by the name of Philip Whitbane." There was a stunned silence, and Rainbow Dash was the first to speak. "Sialem?" she repeated. "You mean that magical starry place where you became an alicorn? What does this mean, Twilight?" Twilight's attention was drawn, not to the blue Pegasus, but to the orange earth pony Applejack, who had a strange look in her eye. "Twilight," she said, softly, "if y'all can still talk to the spirits of those who passed on, I don't suppose you saw a certain earth pony mare with a pear butter cutie mark, did ya? Or a stallion with a big green apple on his flank?" Twilight shook her head sadly, and Applejack visibly drooped. "Ponies only pass through Sialem after they die," said Twilight, "and then they move on to—" She stopped. There were folk tales of pony ghosts, even undead like vamponies, but where their spirits went after Sialem, that was a whole different conversation. "Nevertheless," continued Twilight, "our new friend Philip here certainly does represent an enigma, for I certainly have no indisputable record of a spirit finding their way back from Sialem." "I do beg your pardon, Twilight," interjected Rarity, "and no offense to our otherworldly guest, but can we say with all certainty that he really does come to our lands as a friend? Of all the ghost story books I have leafed through in my silk pajamas on Sunday mornings, I would safely say that the majority featured specters who were decidedly on the hostile end of the spectrum." Philip's face, surprisingly, displayed a calm smile. "Very wise, your unicorn friend," he commented. "Trafficking with spirits is a dangerous trade, dangerous indeed." "Well," said Twilight, briskly, "whatever he is, I decided to give him safe passage into Equestria, and now we must come to a consensus on what to do with him. For I think we can all agree, having an invisible, bodiless spirit loose in Equestria is not a very wise state of affairs to find themselves in." Twilight knew her friends, as was she, were remembering the tale Starlight Glimmer had told them, of Discord's incorporeal spirit wreaking havoc upon the School of Friendship in Ponyville. It was not something any of them wished to experience, much less with an even more unknown entity than Discord himself. Spike, who had been in the dark shadows of the throne room, scampered into view. "Which is why," continued Twilight, "I have asked all of you here. For there are no other ponies in Equestria would I trust more to give me advice on this, or any other, matter." "Can we just send him back where he came from?" piped in Rainbow Dash, and Philip visibly recoiled. "No," said Twilight, perhaps louder than she intended. Catching herself, she said, more quietly but just as firmly, "No, Rainbow Dash. I will not consider that possibility unless we really are offered no other choice. The land that Philip died in was no Equestria, no, I fear Tartarus, or Discord's realm, would be a more apt analogy." The other ponies shivered, but Fluttershy piped up, "Discord's realm isn't so bad, once you get used to the place." "Perhaps," Twilight agreed, "after he was reformed," she said, pointedly. Fluttershy blushed, but didn't respond. It was clear she took the point. Even Fluttershy balked at the prospect of a world ruled by pre-Reformation Discord. Twilight cleared her throat. "Philip here can't remain as a spirit forever, and we can't just send him back to the world he came from. However, the land where Philip was born in seems to be far more akin to Equestria, and we know from Starswirl's accounts, as well as my own experiences with Starlight Glimmer and time travel, that the elements of harmony, and the cutie mark map, have the ability to send beings, even incorporeal ones like the Pony of Shadows, into other worlds. Maybe you and Starlight could work on a way of finding his home world." Piped up Pinkie Pie, "With both of you super geniuses SES teamed up, you should have it done in no time flat." "I was hoping you would suggest that, Pinkie," said Twilight, "but in the meantime, I think we ought to welcome Philip into Equestria proper. And that means granting him physical form." The other ponies were too stunned to speak. What exactly was Twilight suggesting here? "Twilight," interjected Fluttershy, softly, "I don't like where we're going with this. To give a spirit physical form, you would either need to let him possess a living pony, or you would need to create a body for him from scratch. Either way." She gulped, then steadied herself. "Either way, you would be interfering with the course of nature. And that that is not something I can ever condone. Fluttershy was ever the one to come up with the most surprisingly insightful ideas, a fact they had gotten used to after she demonstrated her freaky knowledge of sewing all those years ago. Twilight looked out the window. Whatever we decide, I think such matters are best discussed, not in the dark of night, but left for the light of day. So, as bassist George Horson would say, here comes the sun. She closed her eyes, her horn glowed, and suddenly, over the horizon, came the first breaking light of dawn, its mellifluous light spilling over the countryside, illuminating the sparkling rivers and the swaying green trees and woodlands across the mountainside. The light shone through the windows, creating a kaleidoscope of color that lit the entire room in every hue. When she was done, Twilight opened her eyes to the glorious view in front of her, yet the thing that stunned her most was the spirit of Philip Whitbane before her. For his steel-blue eyes were wet and shining, and a single, ghostly teardrop fell from his eye and landed on the floor, like a pearl. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and leave a comment and share it with a friend. See you all later.